Hey everybody, it's Dallas week. We got a big show for you coming up with our usual game preview content and a special guest. Not going to tell you who it is though, you got to stick around. It's the Hogsty coming at you.
By fans, for fans, the Hogsty. And now, here's your host, Sean Conti.
Today's guest is a legendary Redskin, playing with the team from 1989 to 1993 and adding a Super Bowl ring in that time. Since then, he's been a coach, including for the Redskins and the Ravens, where he added another Super Bowl ring, in addition to being an analyst, author, and entrepreneur. So it is our absolute pleasure to welcome to the show the one and only Mr. Earnest Byner. Ernest, how are you?
I'm good. How you all tonight?
We're good. I think we're finally getting over Monday, but I think we're all doing better.
Well, that tends to leave a little bit of a hangover, but you try to figure it out. The guys go back to work, go in and watch the film, try to bury it, but also use that energy to try to focus on the next opponent. So. Dallas is coming in. They're coming in hot and heavy. Zeke just had a great game, so they got some things to be motivated for. So that's the things that we should be motivated for as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we got plenty of questions to ask you about that before we jump into it, because I know that the fans are interested. Can you tell us a little bit about what you got going on these days? I know you got a number of business things going on in the cooking right now. So tell us a little bit about what you've been up to.
Absolutely. First of all, obviously I always got my book. It's called Everybody Fumbles, but it's about my experiences that I've gone through in the league. It's got Redskins information and stories in there. A lot of stuff that I learned from Joe Gibbs, from Art Monk. Watching those guys, and it's also got stories, about the Ravens and about the Browns. But it's really about development. But also I have what I call the original Dogs products. We got popcorn, pretzels, beef stick, cheeses that people can order offline. We'd love to get them in stores if we can. But right now it's on the originaldogs.com website. They can go through that and order that. And the other thing that I have going is my Healing Dogs Foundation, which we go about going to visit veterans. We visited the veterans over in D.C. In January, did the one in Cleveland, and we will do the one in Baltimore eventually. But we go around, we visit veterans, we deal with kids, and we also deal with the homeless. So, those are the things that I have going on that keep me jumping. And I like to watch film. That's the other thing that keeps my mind engaged in football. And because football is my foundation. That's my base.
Absolutely.
That's what I have to go back to really keep my mind engaged. Especially after the career that I had, the blessings that I had to play for 14 years. So it's definitely a blessing to be able to give back in that way as well.
Absolutely. We love your breakdowns on Twitter, by the way. Definitely got a couple questions about that later.
All right. All right.
Well, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Let's take things kind of from a big picture perspective. Obviously, the Redskins have had some trouble running this year. That's no mystery. Can you please help us diagnose the issues going on? Is it a scheme thing? Is it personnel? Should be running more out of power than an inside zone scheme? What's going on? Can you help us?
I can tell you this. I like some of the stuff I see out of Chris Thompson and Fat Rob. Chris Thompson, I think, is he can be a complete back. The only thing that he lacks is size, but his run technique and the way he sets things up and attacks people, I really like. I think. Some of it, Fat Rob, I like what he does. I like some of the things that he sets up, and, the way that he, both of those guys are competing, I think, at a high level. I think, really looking at some of the stuff that's going on, it's a breakdown here, a breakdown there.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of good technique, by the tight ends. I see a lot of good technique by some of the offensive linemen, but I also see every now and again, they're not on the same page for some reason, or they're not watching a guy, a linebacker that might be running through as opposed to, as opposed to hanging back and waiting on them to come off on their double team. So I see a lot of good stuff in the run game. It's just a matter of, everybody, again, being on the same page and staying on the same page and being consistent with it. So I think it's close. I really do think the run game is close. And again, I really like Chris Thompson. I like what he does.
Sure.
I mean, his pass protections and all that kind of stuff, the way he does, I mean, I love it. I love what I see out of him.
Well, let's talk about Chris Thompson because I think you're actually uniquely qualified to talk about him. Chris is obviously a dual threat player. You were most certainly a dual threat player. You were bigger than he was, but you did play kind of a similar role here. We hear from fans all the time, every day. Chris needs to be the feature back. He needs to get all the carries. My concern about Chris, and I think the common concern, is whether or not he's big enough to
Right.
be a feature back where he's running inside. Is that a
Right.
legitimate concern? What do you think?
Well, durability is always something that you worry about when you get a guy with that size. But I think if what I see in him, he's a little bit of a freak because of his quickness and acceleration and speed that he has. So that gives him some additional power. And I mean, the way he runs, and he has, obviously he's dealt with some injury. He has an injury history. So the concern is definitely there. Now, whether he can be the feature back or not, who knows? Give him the opportunity. Let's see, But to tell you the truth, man, I every time he gets the ball, I'm excited. And, I love to see him, getting the ball more and more, getting to a rhythm. But, the thing that you do have to realize is Fat Rob is contributing at a high level too. So when you got those two and you can play them off of each other and you can have them competing without being selfish, I think it's really a good thing for the Redskins team.
So then do you think Fat Rob can ever be really a franchise back? Or, I mean, do you just see this as more of a classic two-headed monster, kind of like you were a part of back in the 90s?
That depends on him. It really does. What type of ownership is he going to place on the position? I mean, because he's given the opportunity to be. He's a starter. Okay, what type of mindset is this your job? I mean, even though I didn't mind splitting time with other guys,
Sure.
I was kind of selfish about what I wanted, and I wanted to be the man. I wanted to be the guy.
Right, and you usually were, I think. I mean, to be fair, right? But, I mean, they carved out roles for guys. I mean, right? That's how you want to see it done in the end.
No question. And I, at some point, we were switching off. Well, we all had a role. Gerald was he was the short yardage goal line guy, which at that point in my career, I guess it was, he needed a role too. Ricky Irvin had a role. He was the backup guy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Brian Mitchell had a role. So we all had our roles, man. But I can tell you this, I wanted to be the man.
Sure.
I did. And I hope that's what he desires. And I hope that's what Chris desires. Because you don't become the man. You don't become a franchise back. You don't become a winner unless that's something that you prepare for each and every day. That's something that you think about each and every day, either at work, but also when you're at home. You gotta take the job. To me, I took the job home. It was personal to me. So if that's what these guys want, if they want to be the guy, then the man has to go there.
Well, about Rob Kelly, the guy is 230 pounds. I've never thought of it. I don't have your running back expertise, obviously, but he doesn't strike me as an elusive guy. What I wonder is if he's more appropriately placed in a power scheme rather than this cutback zone scheme. Am I wrong?
Well, no, you're not. To me, and this is a good football player. It doesn't matter to a good football player what they ask them to do, because they have the ability to adjust. They have the ability to understand schemes and how schemes come together. They understand what their linemen are doing up front, so they can set them up. So to me, if a guy is a good football player, whether he's a receiver, quarterback, whether he's a linebacker, even whatever the scheme is, he can make himself fit. So if to me, the onus is on the player to make himself what he needs to be successful. So I hate to try to box guys in with schemes. I mean, but some guys, I mean, they fall into that, and they let other people determine who they are and what they are. And I hope that's not the case with some of these guys.
Now, we can't let you end the current Redskins running back talk without talking about Samaje Perine, because Perine's another guy who was a fan favorite. He got a lot of attention in the preseason. He's got a storied college history. To me, when I see Perine, I see a guy who has trouble seeing where he's supposed to be running, what hole he's supposed to be hit. He doesn't so much look indecisive as he just doesn't really seem to know where to go. Well, what do you think? Why is Perine not successful?
Well, the thing that I saw on Monday, I saw him on the sideline, and it looked like he was comfortable. I don't know if that is the case. But from what I saw in college, I thought he had some good running ability. He has size, and he has a little bit more speed than what you think. For a guy that has his size. Coming out of college, see, this is one thing that happens with college guys is that they are not taught how to set things up and how to understand the concept and understand what we call the power of the play is, and what's the weakness in the play as well. So you got to know both, and you also got to learn your offensive lineman. So maybe Perine is learning while he's on the sideline, while he's going through the process. But you got as his coach, he has a good coach, and as his coach, the guy that is his coach needs to be teaching him these concepts, and he needs to be in what I would say eating this constantly. I mean, just all the time thinking about, the concepts, understanding how to set things up, and understanding where the possibilities are within each play.
Hey, can I ask you a quick follow-up on that? Because, I mean, you're arguably one of the greater running back coaches of all time. You've had, several Pro Bowlers, that you've coached up. How hard is it really to teach a young guy that? Like, are we talking that's something that could take all season? I mean, do you think by the end of the season we'll even see any change in, his vision and his ability to set up these plays like you're talking about?
It shouldn't take that long.
No? Okay.
Especially if you got a guy who will apply it. I used to give my guys homework, and I'm sure the running back coach is doing this, but I would make them draw plays. I would make them get up and go show me who had to block who. Okay. In the meeting room, I wouldn't let them sit. I wouldn't let them sit down. I mean, I'm sure the running back could do a really good job.
Sure.
From what I understand, that's what I would do, and I would make them bring work to me. And young guys, I would meet with them, especially if it was a guy that I wanted to develop, and we were going to depend on. I treated all of them the same. I'm sorry. I taught everyone like he was a starter. I had to do it. I'm sorry. So I'm great. If this guy is struggling with something, and I know that he's struggling with it, and he's not getting it, when we're meeting, he'd come in the morning, and I would meet with him, and we go over stuff. And I'd, again, be giving him homework and making him spit back out what I was teaching him. So, I'm sure the guy's intelligent, and that's why I used to challenge the guy. You all are intelligent. I'm challenging you, and you're intelligent. Show me that you're intelligent enough to pick this up. So I think that's one of the things that he might need to be challenged with.
Now, one of the film things I thought you pointed out was real interesting on your What I See breakdowns on Twitter, which incidentally people can go to Twitter and see these because these are great. You pulled a play from the Redskins 49ers game and showed a play how Ryan Grant, the wide receiver, missed a block. because he really he didn't identify the middle linebacker, which caused them to be confused about where are you seeing that as a common trend in the Redskins? When I saw that play, I just thought, okay, the guard missed the block. Frankly, is that common? What do you? Yeah, that's why we need you to describe what's happening.
Right? No, not really. I didn't see. That was just something I saw on that particular play. And sometimes you see guys that are double teamed, and sometimes not having their eyes on the guy that they're supposed to be double teaming, the linebacker that they're supposed to be double teaming up to. Mm-hmm. And every now and again, the linebacker will run through and catch him off guard. But when you're a receiver and you have to block a secondary guy, see, he got confused between who was the backer and who was the safety. Right. He should have been blocking the safety because the linebacker was accounted for with the offensive line. So evidently he didn't see who the quarterback pointed out as the Mike backer. And then all he had to do was go wheel safety. And that would be 1-2 from inside out. And that second guy would have been the guy that he had. And he would have been able to put himself in a better position if he'd understood exactly who he had.
Ernest, I want to switch up and talk about some of the coaching, your coaching career, and because let's be honest, you worked with a lot of legendary coaches. You've got kind of an impressive resume there. In general, what was some of the differences between some of those guys you worked for? And I also have a different kind of question here as well about that. What was Joe Gibbs like when you played for him versus when you coached with him?
Well, Joe, to tell you the truth, Joe was, to see him as a coach and to see him as a player, because I'm in the room with him every day as a coach.
Right.
I'm over there to 3, 4 o'clock in the morning with him as a coach. I'm mad is what I'm doing. I'm mad because we're over there, because we're in there breaking down power and inside zone like we haven't ever run it before. But see, that's what made Joe successful.
Right.
That's what made us. And that's why he was able to put us in some of the positions that we were in. So the difference was I still respected and revered him as a coach, but even more so as a player. Because when I came here as a player, Joe was like God almost. Not quite God.
Well, in DC, he definitely was like God.
Yeah, right. So from a player perspective, a lot of people kind of stayed away from Joe because he had that aura, and he actually played off of that aura too. You know what I'm saying? So when I went in to talk to him about me being the feature back, a lot of guys were like, "Man, you did what? Are you crazy? Why did you do it? Man, you nobody talks to Joe." But I went in and actually had a man-to-man discussion with him about where I was in my life and what I thought I could do for the team. So the way I saw Joe as a player was different than how I saw him as a coach. So, but he was one of the guys that was definitely influential in how I did some things with my players and how I did not do some things with my players. So it gave me a couple of different perspectives.
Okay, we can't let you get out of here and off this topic without asking you about the 91 Super Bowl team, because we've asked some of your teammates on this show about this group, and we've tried and pressed to get them to say, okay, that's the greatest team ever, and nobody will say it. So I'm curious about whether I can make you say the 1991 team was the greatest Super Bowl team ever, and tell us a little bit about what it was like to play on such a great team.
Well, I can tell you this. We were voted as the greatest team ever by, I can't remember what, I don't know if it was ESPN or whomever,
I think it was them or SI, yeah.
I mean, what else needs to be said?
See, I like that. I'm glad you're willing to say it.
Yeah, Joe Jacoby would not admit it.
Either would we had Ricky Sanders on for an hour.
Yeah, Ricky wouldn't admit it. Yeah.
Well, that's why they're trying to pay respect to the other teams.
Sure.
But, it's some guys that will say that was the biggest team that won the Super Bowl. I mean, because you look at that team, it was as deep and as I'm talking as talented as any team that I've been on.
Mm-hmm.
That particular team, and the way things came together for that team. I mean, you got to look at the coaching staff. You got to look at the players. You got to look at the GM. I mean, you look at all of the things that came together for that one particular year, and the way we played, and the way we won games differently.
Mm-hmm.
And also who we played. That defense was. Pettibone, and they had the defense playing. So yes, to me, it's voted that way. So I'm gonna say it was definitely one.
Sure.
The best. You know what I'm saying? Now, and the thing about playing with those guys, the way we held each other accountable,
mm-hmm.
the way we loved each other. I say this, and I can say this about any team that was a winner that I played on. It was a different level of caring, accountability, ownership by the players that was involved with each one of those teams. And for some reason, that 91 year, it was even more so. It was even more special. If somebody failed, somebody else stepped up. And then when somebody stepped up, somebody else stepped up even more. So it was a blessing to be a part of that. But it was to me, it was a joyride to go on that season. To have some of the games that I had and the quality times at the almost at the perfect times, and then Ricky Irvin stepping in and Gerald. Fred Stokes. Who's unheralded but making all kind of crazy. Come on, really? But how many times does that type of stuff happen? So it was really a gift and a blessing.
Mm-hmm. Hey, can I ask you about because all right, so the 91 team, I was 8 when you guys won, so it's the first Super Bowl my parents let me watch. So my memories.
I was older, and I'm the one that kind of watched that.
It's the first Super Bowl I legitimately remember, so I'll say that. But for me, I want to talk about some of the older teams, the later teams. You coached Clinton Portis. What was that guy like to be around? We saw the funny Portis, the guy with the costumes and stuff, but what was he like, when the cameras weren't really rolling?
He was a headache.
A headache, I love it.
Perfect.
And I'll tell you, the reason he was a headache, man, because he was a little different.
Mm-hmm.
And he really wanted. He knew what he thought he knew, but he needed. And I'm trying to help him develop his craft, his mentality, all that. But he came here with some already predetermined ways that he wanted to do stuff,
mm-hmm.
and he had the ear of everybody over there.
Sure.
And I'm trying to teach him how to be the best team player and be able to help everybody develop and all that kind of. I had the reason I think it was a headache is I had pressure in my head almost every day going home from dealing with some of that stuff. But the talent. When you talk about the talent, that's not to downplay anything about Clinton, but it's just being real. But the talent level, and then when that sucker got into a groove, he could roll.
Sure.
He was one of the guys that really could get in the zone, and you really could kind of almost leave him alone.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So it was one of the things that really taught. I learned a lot because that was really my first time having my own room. Was when I came to the Redskins.
Mm.
And I learned quite a bit about how to, like I said about Coach Gill, how to and how not to deal with with some of the aspects of the player. Because to me, it's all about developing the person. I'm gonna coach you in football, but what type of person are you off the field? What are you doing off the field? How are you
mm-hmm.
representing you and your family off the field? So those are the things that I was always working on because of my player development background, it was a blessing to be able to have it and be able to work from that perspective and help those guys develop the way I did.
Well, I mean, having Clinton Portis as a running back in your first room was sort of jumping to the advanced class. I think of personality management.
Well,
he wasn't pulling all.
You're selling those guys he had in Baltimore short too.
Yeah, that's true. There's some headaches
well,
there.
you know what? I didn't have my own room in Baltimore, but I was helping.
Sure.
I was bringing the guys in, meeting with them individually, all that kind of stuff. But when I got to the Redskins, it was my room. You know what I'm saying? I was the only one. I was the only one in the room. So
were you getting mad at Clinton for the costumes and the Coach Janky Spanky and all that stuff, or was that in good fun, or was that just irritating?
No, that was him. I mean, the thing that I said about that is that if nobody else is gonna say anything, I'm not saying anything.
I can't imagine Joe Gibbs just like seeing that and being like, oh, okay. But Gibbs just strikes me as such a straight-laced person.
He might have been. He might have been. he might have been saying it was okay, but no, I couldn't see that either. As me being a former player with Coach Gibbs, but it was what Clinton was doing. It was fun.
Right.
It made light of a lot of situations. I think it probably helped him to develop stuff. Is he an actor yet? Is he doing anything with that?
I don't think he's doing that. I think he was doing play-by-play or.
Yeah, he did preseason sideline.
Yeah, that's right. Sideline stuff.
Not quite acting.
No.
Yeah, it's Dallas week, so we can't let you get out of here. Also, without giving us a little bit about Dallas. To us, Zeke Elliott is the primary concern on the Dallas team. What do you see in Zeke Elliott?
How do we stop him? That's the better question.
Yeah, that's a better question. How do we stop him?
Well, good. First of all, good luck with stopping him because he's one of the guys that I think if he would play safety or linebacker, he'd be a Pro Bowler. I think he's a guy. He's one of the guys I think is a football player. The things that I think slowed him up initially was I think he came in overweight. I think he came in overweight and he wasn't in shape because he didn't play in the preseason. Because I think he had to kind of get his wind and get his groove going, and I think he's finally got it. And this is probably not a good time for the Redskins to be playing Zeke Elliott. Now, with that being said, it's the challenge to me. Every time I played someone who I thought was the best, and I saw Eric Dickerson, Marcus Allen, Emmitt Smith coming into town. It was a challenge to me personally. I looked at it that way. So I'm hoping, and I'm putting it out there that Chris Thompson and Fat Rob, this is a challenge. So you all control the game and keep Zeke Elliott's ass on the sideline. That's the best way to defeat a good offense is to keep those suckers on the sideline. So get these first downs, when it's 3rd and 1, convert it. Because last week when there's 3rd and 1 versus the Eagles and we didn't convert, that's when it went from 10 to 7 to 10 to 3 to 10 to 10 to 10 to 17.
Yeah.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Real quick. So we got to convert those 3rd downs, 3rd and 1s. You don't run a route short of that. You know what I'm saying? And if it's 3rd and 1, line up and put them in the eye. And make them run instead of throwing the ball 31. Really, 3rd and 1? Well, anyway, I'm going on. So anyway, back to Zeke, man. I think that offense is starting to click, and I think Zeke is part of that. I believe. I don't think they got that groove. I don't think that offensive line is the same, and I don't think he's figured out how to help those offensive linemen like he did last year. As good as he did last year. Because he had a better offensive line. So I see the defense being able to be exploited. I mean, their defense, with the short pass. I like what Reed. What these guys are doing as a tight end position. I like this stuff that they're doing. So being able to capitalize on those types of things, man, I think it can be a victory.
Absolutely. Cool. Awesome. Well, we certainly will hope so. You heard it here first, folks, straight from the horse's mouth, from the expert himself. Ernest, we really appreciate you being on the show, and we want to obviously give one more call out. TheOriginalDogs.com. Check it out. We'll throw some links up on our site. HealingDogs.com sounds like an amazing cause, too, to get behind. And, of course, Everybody Fumbles by Mr. Byner. Get it now. Available now. Amazon. Check it out. Thank you so much for being on.
And on my website. And it's available
and
on
his
website.
website.
ErnestByner21, ErnestByner21.com. So,
yep.
Absolutely. Thank you all, man. Appreciate you all.
Thank you, Ernest.
No problem.
All right.
All right.
Have a great one.
All right. Well, I know I can speak for all of us when I say that was awesome. Really fun interview. Super talkative guy. Super informative as well. What'd you guys think were the big takeaways from this one?
Oh my God! First of all, that was awesome. I thought he was a really great guest, and for those of us, Alex and I, who are old enough to remember to watch him live and everything, was really special. But more importantly, he had a lot of detailed information, about what he saw, and I thought that was a really, really great interview. Really glad he came on. So thanks very much to Ernest. And by the way, I did go and check out his was it the Original Dogs?
Yeah,
there's a lot of good food. There's some cool food on there actually. So I recommend that too.
Maybe for our next Hogstye giveaway, we can give away some of Ernest's stuff.
There you go. Yeah, maybe we'll do that.
You'd be so lucky.
That actually would be a good idea.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's help him get the story.
It's got to do better than us trying to give away our shirts. So
I'm not convinced anybody wants those every time I send them.
He's given a couple of them away,
Yeah.
A couple people have won them.
No, tons of them. No, that was a really good interview. It sounds like he's got some awesome stuff cooking in terms of his organizations and stuff.
Super friendly. I've noticed this trend among all these old guys we talk to. They are all the nicest players that we seem to deal with. The vets.
Well, that's also why the team was so good, because these are all a bunch of good guys who got along and were good. They're not a bunch of divas and all that.
Right. I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Like, does anybody think we could talk Deion Sanders into ever coming on this show because he was a Redskin? He's never going to do it, right?
No.
Yeah.
Ernest Byner, yes.
Yeah.
He certainly was a believer in Chris Thompson. I thought that was a pretty cool thing for him to speak on. So obviously cutting from the kind of the same mold, these two, in terms of their playing style, but he certainly seems to suggest he sees him as a feature back kind of guy.
Yeah. I mean, and for those who forget, Earnest Byner in his day, like his career numbers, it's like 8,000 yards rushing and another 4,000 yards receiving. He was
a real dual threat dude.
Yeah, and that was back in the day when you didn't have guys like that often. He was doing it before Marshall Faulk.
And he had, multiple 1,000-yard. I think he had 3,000-yard rushing seasons. I mean, he was. For those of you who are too young to know, he was big time back then. He's in the Ring of Fame for a reason.
He's up there with Roger Craig.
Yeah. And so he's. I think when he says something about Thompson, I take him. I take it for more than a grain of salt.
Well,
he knows a hell of a lot more than I do. That's for sure. All right. Well, unless you guys want to say anything else about the Byner interview, we will let that speak for itself and move on to Dallas Week preview. Guys, are you ready?
Yes.
This is the sound of me vigorously rubbing my hands together, getting ready to get in the nitty-gritty.
I'm glad that's what that sound was.
I knew you were going to say something vulgar, Alex. Never going to get that Disney sponsorship at this rate. Well, let's get into it. Let's talk about Dallas. This is obviously a big game, as it is every year. Haven't seen them yet. Oh boy, I hope we can pull this one off after a disappointing week last week. So, where do you guys want to take this first? Dallas offense, Redskins offense? What do you want to talk first?
I would say the Dallas Cowboys offense, because we just finished talking about Zeke. So, I mean, do we want to kind of start with that? And
yeah, that makes sense.
Sure. Makes sense.
It's obviously a little bit. Actually, I'll start off with this. I don't know how much you guys have watched the Cowboys. Obviously, they're not quite the Cowboys of 2016 levels.
No,
I
they're
think
not.
This is a team we have opportunities against. But let's talk about some of those specifics. So, Steve, do you have any stats for us right off the bat?
No, I do have Dallas offensive stats here. And just I will make it known here that in terms of the rankings for the accumulating stats are still a little skewed because a lot of teams haven't had their bye week yet. Okay,
right.
So just I get that out up front. So, but they've scored 165 points. They're 8th in total points. Now, analysis Dallas. This is Dallas with 6 games. just for the record, because some teams have played 7. But they are 8th in total points, 13th in total yards, 6th in yards per game, 6th in yards per play. More importantly, 5th in rushing yards and 2nd in rushing yards per attempt. Dak Prescott has had another quality year so far. He is 62.7% completion percentage, 98.2 quarterback rating. They just don't pass the ball much. They've only had 206 pass attempts, which is 24th. But once again, the bane of the Redskins' existence, Jason Witten, is the leading receiver. 42 targets, 31 receptions, 283 yards. For those of you who are curious, Dez Bryant, interestingly, has 28 receptions on a whopping 58 targets. Unbelievably.
Yeah. He's got about the same amount of yards this year as Chris Thompson.
Yeah, he has 327 yards, but the number of targets just jumped right out the page at me, and the fact that he's only caught less than half of them. Really telling me.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, the fact that Witten's leading the team is actually kind of a surprise. Am I alone thinking Witten was going to kind of fall off this year?
No,
I don't know, man. I mean, the guy's a Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
he's got to hit the wall at some point, Steve. It just does. He keeps pushing it off.
Yeah, I know, but we hope and pray for that every year, and it never happens. Zeke Elliott on the year. 131 attempts, which is 4th in the NFL, 4th most in the NFL, 540 yards, which is 6th, 4.1 yards per attempt. But let's just say this about Zeke, since we're talking about him, not to poo-poo what Ernest said, but he hadn't been as good this year. He ran wild against the 49ers, and that has boosted a lot of his numbers.
Mm-hmm. Ernest was right. He is a fat ass. It's fat boy. And
that's exactly
I wasn't going to talk about
it.
Because when he said it, I was like, I knew I was not tripping. I knew he was looking like a fat boy on the field. So I just thought it was funny that he brought it up.
Yeah, I mean,
that's harsh.
I don't want to. The expert said it.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to poo-poo what Ernest was saying. I will say that the offensive line in Dallas is probably the biggest reason behind some of their regression in terms of the passing game and the running game. I think they just haven't been quite as good. This is a team that I think was ranked first, or a unit that was ranked first last year. They've regressed a little bit. Prescott doesn't have as much time, and I think it's hurt Zeke too. So it's really that offensive line, I think, is where you have opportunities.
Yeah.
The Redskins defense.
I think you're right. I mean, it's their defense, I think, is improved. We'll get to their defense, but their offense just hasn't been as effective for a lot of reasons, and I think it probably begins and ends. It probably begins and ends with the offensive line, exactly like what you said. Because this team was an elite rushing team last year. Zeke was great, but it was also because those horses up front could really, really run block in a manner that even the Redskins O-line can't do.
That's right.
So they haven't been quite as effective this year, and that's probably a big part of it is offensive line.
Now, I will say one thing that worries me particularly about this offense is that it's like the same story every week, but we don't do well in the red zone. We don't do well on third down defensively. These are things that they both do really well at. From my understanding, they sort of are excelling on third down, particularly. We've got to find a way to get off the field this week, or it's going to be a repeat.
Yeah, and I think that all starts with being able to contain a very mobile quarterback again. That was what killed us last week, and we're not going to have it much easier with Dak Prescott. He's a little smaller, a little easier to bring down probably, but he can get out of the pocket probably a little better than Wentz does. So, that's going to be tough. That's going to be.
Yeah. I mean, what you guys have to remember out there about Dallas is that this is a running team first and foremost, and part of the reason why Dak Prescott succeeds as well as he does is that he can rely on the running game because it really opens up the offense quite a bit when you have teams that are focused on stopping Zeke Elliott. If you wanted to say, okay, what do you take away? If you're the defensive, if you're Greg Minuski, what do you take away? What do you sell out to stop? And the answer is Zeke Elliott, right? And you force Dak to beat you. The problem is he probably can. But
exactly.
It's just more difficult. I think it's exponentially tougher for him if Zeke isn't playing well.
Yeah, I think that's a great call. I think that's the number one thing you got to do. But in terms, you got to be really ready for anything. I think particularly with this team because they'll throw on third and short. They'll run a power run on third and short. They'll also play that read option. They'll sprinkle kind of anything in. I think they've got a lot of weapons in their toolbox that if we can take away Zeke, there's still so many ways that they can hit us. We've got to play pretty much mistake-free football.
Yeah, I think so. You got to play mistake-free football, for sure. There's no doubt about it.
I was going to say, too, sorry, Steve, not to interrupt.
That's
or
right.
Did I interrupt you, Steve?
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, too, you mentioned Des Bryant. Cole Beasley's the other guy that I think has really regressed this year. He's sort of like an afterthought this year, when last year he was a major part of that offense. Not really getting anything going this year. So I guess that's one thing that speaks in our favor. But, that is what it is. It's Cole Beasley regressed from last year. But I guess that's the only real positive I can say, guys, right now.
Cole Beasley is one of these receivers that has a really, really high catch percentage.
Yeah.
When I was doing research for the Jordan Reed article a few months ago, his name kept popping up as a guy who's just way up there. So I think Cole Beasley is more effective than people maybe realize, just because he's not a big name, and so the casual fan is going to be concerned about Dak and Dez. And then you forget about Cole Beasley because he's just little old Cole, but he's actually very effective.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I don't forget about him. But he's your classic white boy slot receiver is what he is.
What is a white boy slot receiver?
It's just a white boy slot receiver. There's nothing,
it's Cole
unique
Beasley, Steve. He just told you.
That's true.
And Wes
I'm a
Welker.
little bit offended.
It's basically the same thing.
Most Welker, yeah, nice. All right, well, if anything else you guys want to call out on offense before we switch to the other side of the ball, Cowboys offense, that is.
So I told y'all before we started, my volume is low, so forgive me if you talked about it. I did hear something about mobile quarterbacks, I just think that the biggest thing for us this entire season to date is the fact that we've struggled to contain mobile quarterbacks.
Yeah.
They've been, and I actually wrote about this, but so it should be coming out soon. But they've been the biggest threat on the ground to the Redskins this season. Historically, in recent years, that's been the case consistently. But this year alone, it hasn't been running backs that's been a big threat to us, as opposed to like previous years where a running back and a quarterback will run wild on us. It's really been just quarterbacks. We're giving up over 5.8 yards a carry to quarterbacks this year, as opposed to running backs. We're giving up 3.6 or 3.7 yards per carry to running backs. So it just goes to show how much we struggle against mobile quarterbacks in general.
Yeah, I mean, look how bad it was against Carson Wentz, and that dude is the size of, Ben Roethlisberger. It's going to be more of the same.
Yeah. And we have Dak coming up. We have Russell Wilson the very next week, and Case Keenum, who's not known for being he's not a scrambler per se, but he's mobile. So I just give him the benefit of the doubt that he is a somewhat of an elusive person. He can escape the pocket if he needs to.
Right.
He's obviously not an elite guy like the people that I just mentioned, but it's 3 consecutive games where we're going to face mobile quarterbacks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not fun.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, let's flip things on over to the other side of the ball here then. Let's talk about Cowboys defense, Redskins offense. Can Kirk Cousins get it done this week? Is he going to be pressured constantly? What's going to happen, guy?
Am I the only one that gets tired of talking about Kirk Cousins every single week?
God, no. You kidding me?
I told you, I hate talking about that man.
I don't blame you.
Jamal texts us that probably every 2 or 3 days. Can we not talk about Kirk Cousins?
I'm just getting tired of hearing that, Kirk is what he is, And so really, let's do this. Let's point out the strengths and weaknesses of this offense as we're going into Dallas week. And, Chief, to me, the number one strength and the number one weakness both is Chris Thompson. And I'm not trying to knock Chris Thompson, but it's the fact that Chris Thompson is doing everything right now is both a strength and a weekness, because you take away Thompson.
Of you, Steve.
Okay, yeah. Let's not zen me. No.
No, I think it's a totally fair point, Steve. Absolutely. He's kind of the only guy that's getting things done, except last week we had some good showings from our tight ends. Other than that, it was, nothing.
Right. Yeah, so if you stop Chris Thompson, what else is there? And I don't know if the answer is going to be promote Maurice Harris, make Brian Quick more of an offense, sign someone other wide receiver. I don't know. But this team cannot survive and exist for a full 16-game season and get absolutely nothing out of its wide receiver core.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that this could be an opportunity. The bad thing about this game is they could play the Dallas secondary. I think their pass defense isn't even ranked that low, but the Dallas secondary isn't necessarily playing that well. They're not getting any interceptions. In fact, the defense as a whole, I'm kind of surprised that it's ranking. I think it as a sort of an extension of some of the teams that they've faced. But there are going to be opportunities on this defense. Absolutely going to be opportunities. You need to take them.
Yeah, I mean, Ernest said it, during our interview. He said there's opportunities in the short passing game against the Dallas defense. And I think he's right. Is our secondary great? No. Is Sean Lee's a great linebacker?
Right.
But I don't think their DBs are necessarily anything to write home about. I don't think. And in terms of yardage and whatnot, opposing quarterbacks have a quarterback rating of 96.5 against this team. Okay,
right.
That's a pretty darn good rating, and that's pretty poor defensively for Dallas.
Right.
So that all by itself will tell you that you can be effective passing the ball against these guys.
Yeah, see, our very subpar receiving core may very well play relatively well this week. And then what are you going to say, Steve?
I'll come up with some other nonsense that I'll spew off the top of my head.
Nice.
I
think we can pass on them, but I think the issue, we have 3 people hurt on the offensive line.
Right.
Trent Williams, Sheriff, and Moses, who every single time he drops back, he finds a way to get hurt. And I don't know. I don't even know how that's possible.
That's harsh, man. That's harsh.
No, it wasn't more so to be, a shot at him, but it's like I really cannot believe it's unbelievable how many times you just see him drop back and he's just on his knees after the play. It's like, oh my goodness, he's hurt again. I just don't get it. I mean, he's a trooper, but my point was the fact that we had 3 starters hurt. You don't really know what's going to go on with the offensive line heading into this week. We still don't know what the status is of the offensive line yet. So they have a pass rush, and that's the biggest thing. Like, even if their secondary is weak, as we believe it to be, I believe it to be as well. I mean, that pass rush can play a factor against us, especially if we have to make some moves on the offensive line, and that's just something to keep in mind as well.
No, that's
I'll point
fair,
out about.
though.
Go ahead.
It's
Sorry.
Well, no, it's okay. It's DeMarcus Lawrence, I think, is worrisome along that line. But other than that, I think if we can eliminate that, we should have time.
I mean,
they have 21 sacks on the season, which is a lot more than sacks we've had. DeMarcus Lawrence, as you mentioned, 9.5 sacks already. And it's only week 7. That is an incredible number. Okay, if he keeps that up, he's on a 20 sack pace, which is just unheard of.
I mean, there's only probably 5 of those in the history of the NFL.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, it's a serious problem. And look, I mean, we're about to have the Tyler Catalina era, at guard. If Sheriff can't go, and not to bash Tyler, I mean, he's a good. He showed something, but you don't lose a guy like Sheriff. Who has both a back problem and an MCL problem. You don't lose guys like that or have them be less effective and have it not affect the team. It's a serious, real issue.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I was amazed when the team came out and said, yeah, we think he might be able to go.
Yeah, I know. Wow.
We
That's
all saw and heard what we saw and heard when he got hurt on Monday night.
He yelled a naughty word that got picked up by the
people
ESPN
keep focusing on
mics.
that. There was a moment a few seconds earlier where the doctor clearly pushed something on his leg and his whole body shook. That was even worse than the profanity.
Yeah.
Jesus, I didn't even see that.
Yeah, it was like she snapped his knee back into place or something.
Oh, that's enough of talking about that, please.
I didn't even see it.
I sit 3 inches from the TV.
I went out for the game.
Yeah.
I don't even remember. I don't remember him getting hurt at all. I don't even remember Trent. I don't remember Trent Williams going out. They said Trent Williams went out for a little bit.
He did.
I do remember Morgan Moses getting hurt. That's why I brought him up. But when I tell you I came home and I think I got home like 12. I ain't feel nothing, man. I do feel it now, but I ain't feel nothing then. So
we're probably good that you missed the game recap. Then.
Yeah.
I want to do injuries just because I think it's so incredible. So let me run through that real fast. This is as of Wednesday night. It's awesome. Zach Brown, back. Spencer Long, knee. Tyan Secchi, core muscle. Brandon Scherf, knee and back. Preston Smith, groin. Trent Williams, knee. All of them did not practice Wednesday. The limited crowd is Tyler Catalina for his concussion. Everett, hamstring. Foster, shoulder. Stephon McClure, knee and hamstring. Fabian Moreau, hamstring. Morgan Moses, both ankles. Josh Norman, rib. All those players were limited. Bashad Breeland has a knee. Rob Kelly, ankle. Monte Nicholson, shoulder. And Chris Thompson, toe.
This is really the Halloween horror
First
story.
of all, how does Catalina get a concussion and he was in a reserve role? I don't get it. Like, these are the things that I really don't understand. I forgot that Spencer Long was on the injury list.
Yeah,
but we really, like, when Jay Gruden said we have no offensive line.
He's serious.
It's
Sean LaValle.
The fact that we're let's be fair. We did just add an offensive lineman today. So
probably sucks.
Well, I mean, I'll read you a name. You tell me if you ever heard of it. Tony Bergstrom.
Oh yeah, Tony.
Yeah. Oh, Bergstrom, of course. Bergstrom,
yeah,
boy.
Sounds like a great player.
Yeah, well, we released it. We had to release AJ Francis to sign him, so that's.
Well, and let's be clear, that was I think didn't they sign Bergstrom to the practice squad?
No, it says they released Francis. In the press release, it says Francis has been released, so that would be active roster.
Yeah. So I mean, because honestly, I mean, the healthy guys are Sean LaValle, who I just can't believe that dude isn't banged up somehow. And Chase.
That's a good point.
Yeah, Chase.
And then Chase Rouillet. Those two guys are the ones that aren't banged up.
And now Chase this guy.
And now this guy.
So we got three guys. You know what? Jay Gruden needs to go to his old AFL playbook where he only has 3 linemen and use that.
We're going to have to. Either that or we're going to see like Ziggy Hood at guard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
It's not going to be fun.
Well, Redskins, we here at the Hawks side, we're ready. You need us? Call us out.
I'm about to say, I've been training, man. You know what I'm saying? Even though I started school again, you know, if y'all need an offensive lineman, I could bulk up.
Yeah. I'll pack on some pounds real quick and get up to at least 230 by Sunday.
See, I weigh 180. I'm thinking I'm the perfect size and shape.
Look, just give me a tight end to help me out. Matter of fact, I can teach Jordan Reed how to block. You know what I'm saying? Put me on there, man. Give me some help. I'll be good to go.
Because Jordan Reed is really a terrible blocker. I mean, we haven't said that enough on this show. That dude just can't block.
I was talking about this with, I think it was Richard Rogers offline.
Richard Rogers of It's Just Business fan.
Yeah. Or Rick, as Sean knows him, probably.
Let's like Rick.
Yeah. But he brought up something because we were going back and forth about this. What about moving Reed out to tight end more? It might have been him. It might have been somebody else. I don't remember who talked.
I'm sorry, what?
Or I mean,
moving
Reed from tight end to wide receiver.
Well, the mismatch, I don't know, because the mismatch with Reed is that he's too big, fast, and strong for the linebackers and the safeties. You know, but if you move him out to corner, he's still big and strong, but he's not. He doesn't have any kind of speed. Right? Yeah. I mean, and he does split wide into like the X role sometimes.
That's true.
But
and I think Davis's 2 biggest passes were doing that.
Yeah, but if you're talking about like permanently making him a wide receiver, I don't know about that.
I don't think you could do it permanently.
That limits his advantages, I think.
Yeah.
Well, what do you guys think? You want to call it anything else? You want to do predictions? What do you guys think? God. We got to do it, Steve.
Yeah, I know. I know. We got to do predictions.
We got to do it at this juncture.
Yeah, at this juncture. Nice. I'm a little unconfident with my predictions this week. This is kind of one of those matchups that I'm just, because of the state of both teams and inconsistent play on both sides, I'm pretty unsure of what's going to happen this week. Mm-hmm. But hell, I'll go first if you guys want me to.
Go ahead.
Go for it.
Okay, let's say the Redskins, very disappointing sweep by the Eagles. They can't let that stand. They've got to go up against another division rival and get a win. So I'm going to say that because the Cowboys tend to play a little bit down to their competition, and I do consider us a worse team, I'm going to say that we actually come out and surprise people this week. I'm going to say the Redskins take this one. It's a close game. Let's call it 27-21 Redskins.
Okay.
All right. Someone else go.
I'll go.
Okay.
All right. Here we go, y'all. Last week I said that the Redskins was going to win. I had no reason why they were going to win. I just said they were going to win. Well, it looked good at first. And I'm going to say this week that the Redskins are going to win. I think they're going to win probably probably 27-20, 27-23 around that range. Reason being is because I don't see them losing 2 straight divisional games. I just don't see it. Even though they are right now they're an average team and they're dealing with a bunch of injuries. I don't know how they're going to pull it off. I just don't see them losing 2 straight. And I don't see them losing 2 straight divisional games. So at this moment, they've been playing well enough where they're not one of the poor teams. They're just playing their average team in the NFL.
Right.
That's not necessarily a bad thing because the league is full of parity. So
yeah, it's like you asked for this NFL, you got it.
Yeah. So and that's basically how I see it right now. They should be able to get back to the run game for sure. Help out Kirk Cousins, especially. I mean, I know the run game is easier on the offensive line too. So we'll see. I think that the Redskins are going to pull it off 27-20. Another close game, but we'll see.
All right.
Okay. I think you guys are right on the close thing, but I think there's one thing that no one's mentioned, and that is that it's supposed to be a pretty heavy rainstorm on Sunday.
Ah, nice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just found out about that, because I was trying to make my weekend plans. So, that's always fun.
Too late.
I think that's going to make this a lower scoring game. And I think the Redskins pull this one out something like 21-14. Because if it's raining and muddy, that helps the Skins because Dallas is an indoor team. They're not used to playing in weather.
Dallas is a running team too, though.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. But
look, from my perspective on it, I kind of side with Jamal in that I just don't see this team losing 2 division games in a row. I'm trying to be objective about this. Number one, Vegas has the Redskins favored. They're at least as of earlier in the week, it was a 1.5 point spread in favor of the Redskins. Well, it's at home. Dallas is traveling.
Right.
That having been said, of course, obviously we have all those injuries. I'm going to call Redskins win in a close game, mainly because they're home. I think they're going to surprise some people. And if it's got to be the Tyler Catalina, TJ Cummings, Tony Bergstrom show, so be it.
Right.
So I'm going to say 23-20 Redskins.
Nobody predicted a loss, so no one covered our bases in case the Redskins lose. Great, guys.
It's Dallas week. I mean, we got to go with
You're
the
right.
home team.
No,
You're right.
I don't think any of us have the stomach to predict a Dallas victory
I just
ever.
can't do it. It's tough.
I don't even remember what I did at the beginning of the season, but
I think I predicted them to split, actually, frankly. But I
Yeah.
can't really – when I'm put on the spot like this, when the game is in front of me, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Well, we'll see. Hopefully things shake out in our favor this week because that was a disappointing one to bounce back from last week. So got our fingers crossed. We will be back with you guys next time for...
We need you, Ryan Grant.
No, we don't.
No, we don't.
I'm counting on you, buddy.
We probably do, though, is the thing. We probably do.
We need you, Brian Quick. I'm going with Brian Quick. I'm going to be
You're the
Brian
best
Quick's
receiver on this team, Ryan. Help us out.
That's just trying to throw some in there for a fight next week with Steve, I think.
Samaje P. Ryan.
Yeah, we're going to have the Samaje P. Ryan Grant show, and we'll all cheer and be happy.
Says those names with such contempt. All right, well, we'll leave it there. Check back on our website. We got all kinds of written content coming this week, and we will see you guys next time. Take care.
Great show.
Cut.